So now we're going to go to some of the opening bids from our guests here. Douglas, you define yourself as a rebel. Tell us, what does a rebel do to really make Brexit work now that it's here?
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. Brexit is very often bracketed with the election of Donald Trump or the rise of Geert Wilders. What I wanted to suggest to you today is that actually the decision by Britain to leave the European Union is the antithesis of all of that. Brexit is a safety valve. Donald Trump and Geert Wilders are what you end up with if you fail to recalibrate the priorities of those who make public policy with the public. Brexit, we're sometimes told, is extreme. It's radical. Well, it's being presided over by Theresa May, a vicar's daughter from Maidenhead, someone I think we'd all agree is a rather unrevolutionary figure. And you know what? Right now, she enjoys the highest polling ratings of any serving prime minister in living memory. Now, on Wednesday, she is going to trigger Article 50. And we know that that means that by April 2019, the United Kingdom will leave the European Union. What does that mean? Well, it means that EU law, EU courts and EU legislatures will no longer have jurisdiction in the United Kingdom. We know all that. But what about all the rest? Is it going to be hard Brexit or soft Brexit? I want to tell you that I think it's going to be a liberal Brexit. And this is why I'm so confident and optimistic. We're leaving the EU. We're not about to leave Europe. I'm an optimist that I think we'll get a good deal. Why? First of all, because Theresa May, unlike David Cameron, is prepared to walk away and if she's not given a good deal at all. David Cameron absurdly ended up in a position where he was willing to have a deal at any price and therefore got a very bad deal. Theresa May, I think, is genuine in her commitment to only signing up if she thinks the terms are good enough. Secondly, she's genuinely not fearful of walking away with no deal because she understands that actually WTO terms are pretty attractive. WTO terms are not about crashing out of the EU onto WTO terms. WTO terms are actually created to stop isolation and protectionism and to facilitate the free exchange of goods and services. Now, some people say that there are insurmountable obstacles to all of this, and they like to talk about migration as one of them, and I speak as UKIP's only member of parliament. I actually think a fairly straightforward situation with migration is attainable. Why? Free movement of people is going to come to an end before April 2019. But that doesn't mean you can't have the free movement of workers. If the United Kingdom hadn't been in the European Union for the past 40 years, it's inconceivable that British companies would be unable to hire workers that they wanted to from EU member states. I think we will end up with a situation where if a British company or university or employer is willing to pay someone a sufficient salary that precludes them from claiming any in-work benefits, they'll be able to work in the UK as they are today. Now, I think there will be a deal on goods and services, and HMG, Her Majesty's government, is keen on this. Why am I optimistic that we'll get one? Well, there are no restrictions at the moment. And unless you know someone who wants to impose restrictions at 1 minute past midnight after we've left, I think the status quo will largely prevail. Now, when we negotiate on goods, we'll be negotiating with a single entity, the EU. When we negotiate with services, it'll be with 27. That's why I think there will be a parallel deal on both goods and services. There will be some contentious issues. You may have heard people saying that there will be a Brexit bill of 20 billion euros or 40 billion or 60 billion. Well, hold on a second. The reality is that the United Kingdom is not under any obligation to pay any of that. But we want to act in good faith. We want to be good neighbours. This is not a divorce settlement with a zero-sum game at stake. It's about making sure that we get on afterwards. And if we are willing to act in good faith, if others are willing to act in good faith. No, we're not going to sign up to a sort of cash for access mercantilist deal that George III may have approved of. But we may well be prepared if, for example, roads are being built in Spain, when the bill comes in for those in a few years down the track, to pay our share. We're willing to act in good faith if others are. We're going to need to continue to cooperate. During the referendum, I was struck by the importance of the Erasmus programme for students, the Horizon 2020 research programme. Those things can and must continue. You don't need to be in the EU to have that international cooperation. It's all the more important that we broaden it. Defence and security. People in Antwerp today or London yesterday, they know the importance of international cooperation in the fight against terror. There are British troops this week stationed on the border of Estonia to safeguard the sovereignty of Estonia. We retain those commitments to defence and security to our Western allies. But the final reason, before I sit down, the final reason for my optimism is look at who's doing the negotiation. If this was a negotiation between, and I speak candidly to you in the confidentiality of these four walls, if it was a deal between, say, Nigel Farage, the leader of my party, and Guy Verhofstadt, the chances of a productive deal, I think, would be close to zero. But it's not. It's going to be between grown-ups. It's going to be between Theresa May and the German Chancellor, whoever that is, and between the heads of state of other member states. And I'm very confident that pragmatism and common sense will prevail. Thank you.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.